and many apologies. I've not got a very good sense of direction, so I got a bit lost at the station. I needed help. So I will stand for the karakia, and please feel free to say it with me. Whakataka hau ki te uru, whakataka hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e he ake ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Right, so again, a warm welcome, and please let me or the Democracy Service advise and know if you need to leave. We will have morning tea at 10:30. And now we're going to accept apologies. So there's a few. Is there? So I've got one from Councillor Tom Helena, and then from the Wairarapa. Is that correct too? That we've got another representative.
This is the only one I've got. Yeah, I believe this is coming.
Oh, sorry, I can't.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry, I'm from the South Wairarapa. I couldn't make it over the hill today. Apologies, but here online.
No, you're online. That's absolutely brilliant. So sorry. So is it just?
Councillor Helena is the only one that I've received.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'll move that. Councillor Mitchell, would you like to second? Thank you. So if we can just raise our hands. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you very much. Conflict of interest declarations, any to declare? No, good. And now just moving the motion to confirm the minutes. So we approve those minutes from 6th of March 2023. Councillor Mitchell, would you like to second? Okay, now I put that motion which has been moved and seconded. So again, say aye if you agree. Okay, so that's carried. No items not on the agenda, no requests for public participation. So we can get right into it because we've got a busy morning. Dill, you're going to introduce the report? Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor, Chair, and everyone. My name is Diljinder Uppal, Zero Waste Strategy Manager for Wellington City Council and Co-Chair of the Regional Steering Group. The report that we sent through last week requests approval for the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan 2023 to 2029. We are seeking approval to go to consultation on the 31st of July, which is in about 7 days' time. And we believe that we've got a few amendments and points of discussion. So hoping to get through those and hoping to get approval from the committee today.
That's excellent, thank you. So look, we have got a bit of time today, so we'll just take it as slowly as we need to. So we'll have plenty of time for questions. Is there anyone that would like to ask any questions first off? Because there's quite a lot of work there. Councillor Mitchell, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just harking back to our last workshop, we had some discussion about seeking some help with the Te Ao Māori lens over this, maybe from MFE or from other partners. I was just wondering what's happened since then and if anything has been incorporated or expected to be coming through.
Thank you, Councillor. We have tried to make contact with the DIA and the MFE. We haven't had much joy, partly because of the short time frame, but we have worked through some of the elements and the feedback that we received from that workshop, and we've incorporated the Te Ao Māori lens and the worldview into the WMP. And if there's anything that you think that we need to do more, then we're happy to take direction on that.
Yep. Can I just ask Emily to give us a brief update as where the project lead's got to, please?
Kia ora koutou, ko Emily Tokuingwa. I'm a Senior Advisor for Waste Management and Minimisation at Porirua City Council. We have, with the project leads, worked on developing section 2.5 of the WMP, so that incorporates the Te Tiriti elements and Te Ao Māori elements. and we've used a guidance from our mana whenua sort of advisors within councils to kind of guide that. We've also added a guiding principle that reflects kaitiakitanga, but not in those exact words. So we have woven, I guess, concepts of te ao Māori throughout most of the document, and particularly our guiding principles kind of reflect that as well.
Do you want? Is that satisfactorily answer your question? Okay. Could I? Oh yes, sure.
I've actually read the document, and I think they picked up the 3 principles that we said were the governing principles of the Te Reti. I'm really comfortable with where they've landed and what's feathered through the document. So I think they have picked up and realised the question that we had at our last workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just follow up on that, and really grateful for the work that's been done. I had quite a long conversation with Councillor Hayward last night, so that was helpful. Is there any room for improvement in the action lists where councils are working with mana whenua, that there could be a greater commitment to working in partnership and making decisions together?
It is something that we already do, Chair, and we tabled at the workshop some of the reasons why engagement with mana whenua hasn't been that optimal, and that is not because of the council officers' effort. It is partly because of the availability of mana whenua, who have been stretched on critical projects and couldn't have just paid attention to this project. But it's part and parcel of council officers' work that we do on every project, and not just the WMMP, but wider waste projects that we work very closely with mana whenua.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor. If I read the question posed.
Yeah.
How does this group propose to advance this WMMP plan with mana whenua input as originally stated? Just for completeness, we are a collection of 8 councils, as you know, and we work with respective EVs, and we have managed to get some engagement with EV from a regional perspective, not just local perspective as well, and that's how we will try and keep getting input and engagement from mana whenua going forward, and not only till the time the plan is adopted, which tentatively is December, but also throughout the year of the implementation of this plan, which is for the next 6 years. How is it funded? It is funded through the waste levy with regards to not only the engagement but also the implementation, which we do very closely with mana whenua.
The funding that we do have available is firstly through the waste levy, but the rest of the projects will no doubt be through rates, and that is something we've actually got to all put into long-term plans. So the actions in here, which are stating that we will engage, will have to incorporate a request for funding through the long-term plans. Okay, through the chair. each council has a local action plan, but each council signs up to this document, and any actions out of that are the responsibility of each council to fund. So we come back to this group. If there are regional actions and there are funding implications for those, then we still have to go back to our respective councils and request funding through either the long-term plan, or if we do have any waste levy funds, then we can use those. But overall, the funding requirements for some of these actions are fairly substantive. So they will require each council to go back to their councillors and consider what sort of actions they can actually fund and where iwi will be incorporated into that.
So I suppose there is there is only local funding. There is nothing from this group to assist the various iwi.
Yep, that's correct.
Kia ora, Councillor Hayward. You've got a question?
Kia ora, hia mana. Me koutou katoa. Sorry if I sound a bit raspy. It's because I've got a recovering from a lurgy. I appreciate officers responding specifically to the role that they have been playing working with mana whenua and trying to incorporate their whakaaro and the mātauranga into the draft plan for consultation. My questions are regarding whether or not officers and already stating their interest in wanting to continue to work with mana whenua on this. Are officers looking at specific initiatives, or are they waiting for mana whenua to come forward in terms of their engagement with this process from should we agree to the consultation process today?
Yep. We have engaged individually around each council with mana whenua, and the message that we have had was that resourcing is an issue. This is, no offence, this is a really important matter for us, but it's not necessarily really important for iwi, and they will decide at what point they wish to engage and on what matters. So I guess that leaves us with continuing to engage at different points, particularly when we get to our regional actions and our local action plans, and asking for advice from iwi as to whether they wish to get involved in a project or not.
Thank you. It's just a follow-up question there, hia mana.
Of course.
So following on from that answer, do the officers have any expectation about a collective view of mana whenua across the 8 councils and the takiwā within as to a position from mana whenua, or is it more likely that we are going to have a more nuanced, if at all, any feedback from individual rōpū?
Okay. When we first started this exercise, we actually did really try very hard to get a regional group up and running. Unfortunately, resourcing was an issue, and as a result, we had to go back and have discussions individually with the iwi in our respective council areas, and that does mean that we haven't got a region-wide perspective, but I guess that's what the work that the project leads have just done recently in response to councillors' direction, that we provide that regional view, and hopefully those 3 principles now provide us with sufficient guidance in terms of our future work programs. Hopefully that answers your questions.
Hia mana, may I ask another question?
You can ask as many as you like, Jeff.
Thank you, hia mana. following on from a comment earlier on in the presentation regarding trying to reach out to government agencies, I believe it was MFE and DIA, and unfortunately due to the tight time frame that wasn't realised, is there any additional effort being placed on by officers to pick up that work at some of a stage during this consultation period?
As Emily said, we have revised the document to include, section 5.2, and we've also been working to incorporate as much as we can right across the document. I think right now it's probably, from our perspective, I guess, as far as we can go at this moment in time.
Thank you. I'm going to hold off any additional questions at this stage. Hia mana. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Any other questions? I've got quite a few. So shall I just start? In my conversation with Councillor Hayward last night, Nigel, we talked about just a continuing commitment to working with mana whenua. Now, I know we'll do that anyway, but I'd just like it as part of the record. Are you comfortable with that? Okay, thank you. I think it was Councillor Mitchell and I, sorry, we've been here a number of conversations, just talking about a midterm review of the plan. So I'm just wondering, and that would be a quick one in 2026 actually, not 2025, just to see how we're going, because we've now got a bit of a history of setting some good targets, but, not doing so well in delivery.
And that's fine. I think under the legislation, we can review the plan at any point in time. And I guess part of what we've tried to do with this plan is really look very, very hard at how we report back to council and our own councils, and make sure that we are very clear on our deliverables and where we've got to. And I think having an opportunity for a midterm review is sensible. Having said that, this exercise has not been cheap.
No, and I when I say review, I was thinking quite a high-level one. It might mean engaging with our mana whenua partners, with councillors, I'm not expecting to pay a consultant. Yeah, okay. The next question was, we did talk about an implementation plan. I think it was Stefan. Are you okay about doing that?
Thank you, Chair. I'm absolutely behind the review. And I am also cognizant with regards to the pressures on the council officers who are doing a lot of work in the waste space, and the capacity issues in the region with regards to waste and the resourcing that is required. I just want to get some clarity on the implementation plan. What does it mean? If it means that there's going to be an implementation plan for each and every local action for each and every territorial authority, that's a lot of work. And there is already reporting in place to the Joint Committee through this forum. Is there something that can be incorporated into the normal business as usual reporting? Then I think we'd be very supportive. But I'm behind the review bit. Just have slight concern about the implementation for local actions.
Right. Can I ask David and Emily just to let us know?
Yeah, thank you. Just for absolute clarity, Chair, is the last triennium we did do a 3-year midterm report, quite a full report, difficult one to do, but delivered that to the committee. Just for clarity going forward, the 3-year or midpoint report and review. So last time we just did a report on update, targets, how we were going. We didn't actually review anything to look at whether our targets could be amended, but you would be looking for that midterm report again, but this time also any suggestions as to whether we might want to look at our objectives or targets or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dill, it's good to push back. So what I envisaged when talking about the implementation plan is that officers will have to do some kind of organisational planning, right? You'll have to do it anyway. You have a project plan. So it was just really making sure that that was formalised, and so we know what the work is that we need to do. So, for example, bless you, there's a lovely one about how we want all Wellingtonians to live sustainable lives. But it's very high level, like it's not an action point yet. So, so getting down to that implementation, even if it's just quite a high level about sort of, you know, who the person is in charge, what resources are going to be used, when you're going to do it. Because at the moment, the action plans are very high level. And I guess I just feel like from past experience, we've had this and we haven't necessarily quite got as much done as we hoped. So the implementation plan then is a sort of a disciplinary tool for all of us to keep to our work program.
Yes, I agree. And as part of the regional steering group, we will be looking at the regional actions and making sure that we have an implementation plan around that. And I know from my council, we are preparing a local action plan, which is an implementation plan around that. And I would imagine that all of the other councils would do a similar sort of exercise.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily need to come back to committee. It's just that officers will do that and it's formalised through a recommendation. Now, next one, now that was Councillor Mitchell's suggestion. I think it was good that we add honouring Te Tiriti o Waitangi to the guiding principles. That was a bit of a mission. And then, sorry, Councillor Hayward, after our conversation, then we maybe put something in the objectives about working in partnership with mana whenua on our projects as necessary. So just that it puts that up there at the priority. Are you comfortable with that?
Councillor, you asking for my feedback on that?
No, to staff, but feel free to, we'll be a bit informal. Feel free to have your input.
Just quickly to say that I was in support of what had been suggested after the conversation with Councillor Mitchell.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, fantastic. So we want to put it in as much as possible, Councillor Hayward. Yeah, of course.
I think, you know, we talk about high-level conversations and KPIs, but I'd actually like you as chair to be quite specific about what it is that you want, because that's actually high level and not actually giving a directive to our officers. And knowing from my council with regard to any transition or implementation plan and working with mana whenua, we've already got a memorandum of partnership which we've signed, right? And I think overarching at this governance level, I think under 2.5 and then you go to 5.6 where it has separated out that we will continue to work with mana whenua, and I'm assuming that we will never stop engaging with them. But through that consultation period, whilst we do it regionally, we'll also be doing it locally, that we will be approaching them to make sure that their voice is quite vocal and articulated in whatever it is that we do with regard to that. So I'm just wondering, you know, whether you go to MFE or whether you go to DIA, it's actually the treaty document itself, which is what the officers have captured under the 3 Ps, under 2.5. So I think we've got it covered, and provided we're quite cognizant about our responsibilities under the Te Tiriti, and I mean, we've really got to get mana whenua to realise that actually local government stand in the same space as central government. So that's the first hurdle that we've got to do. So I just think that, you know, the officers are trying really hard, and I think they've articulated that in here. And even when you go to 5.2 under collaboration, they've got a blue box here that particularly articulates the position that they're going to take going forward for the next 6 years. And also with regard to the review, I think it's really important that we do that, particularly as the officers have identified in this paper. There are going to be some legislative changes that come through that are going to mandate us to review and sit down and have a look. So I'm assuming why, you know, this is a living document, right? Even though we're going to agree to it and sign off on it after the consultation, it's still a living document. Is that right?
I wouldn't agree with that entirely. That's why I wanted a review. So can I just respond? Because
Sure.
there is thought behind it. I'm sorry, you haven't possibly been part of all of the conversations.
And I think as part of this committee, it's really important that all of us as elected people
Yep.
that vote on this are part of all
Yeah,
conversations.
yeah. So I guess after our workshop, we did really want to make sure that this document reflected our commitments to Te Tiriti. I have a different interpretation of the treaty, possibly to the officers' principles. You know, where we're talking about tēnā rangatiratanga, I don't think the three ones that have been identified. But nevertheless, I think Councillor Mitchell was right that the guiding principles do need to state it, that we can't just be in a position where we just talk about waste reduction and circular economy and environmental guardianship, that needs to be put in there. So there was thought behind that. I guess I appreciate it's difficult, but I have leaned on Councillor Hayward a bit just to help us here, because this is not my area of expertise, but I just feel it has to be put through. I guess and then the other point is whether we have managed to thread a Te Ao Māori perspective through this document. I don't think we're there yet, and I think, Councillor Hayward, I'll let you speak to that point as well, but of course. But I think there is still some more room to go. It's like there's a good start, and so I guess that's why there needs to be an ongoing conversation. The problem with it being called a living document is because there's so many councils involved, you know, like it is quite difficult just to, you know, just come in and make some changes. So that's why I thought
Collective agreement, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm happy to do it, but it is quite a complex process and we need to get on with delivery too. So very happy to have the discussion, but if we start opening it up every 6 months, that might just get in the way a bit of doing stuff.
I don't believe that I intended it to be like that. I meant that when there are legislative changes that actually come upon us, then we do have to mandate under the legislation to sit down. And in that context, I meant that it's a living document, that it is not set in concrete.
Of course, and that legislation may not go through too. That was just kind of an interesting point. You know, there may be a change in government in a couple of months, so you know we'll just have to see how that goes.
So, Chair, just to go under the guiding principles,
Yeah.
which are on page 24, 25. So what do you want to see change? Because it would be nice as elected people around the table to know what it is that you're suggesting the officers to do.
Yeah.
Because under them, you've got challenging mindset, collaboration and participation, resilience, waste and resource recovery plans, waste reduction. Yeah. So where and what would the wording be?
So it would be up first because we have to do, and the wording I had suggested was...
Chair, this came through by email from you this morning,
Yeah,
correct?
it did.
Councillor Swales, we all received an email from Councillor Pennant this morning, and it was included in there, but that's what's up on the screen right now.
Oh, you've got it on the screen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I'm completely open to looking at that wording. Yeah, I guess we've just had
So under point
lots of
1,
discussion. Yeah. Yeah.
So we already cover that on page, under 5.2, on page 32. Direct officers to continue work with mana whenua to ensure their aspirations are captured in the WMMP. And as it says on page 32, I don't want to reread it, I'm sure everyone has read the document.
Yeah.
I would have thought that would have ticked that off. Happy with B. And I think you're changing C to 2025.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, look, happy. Do we want to make it 2025 because this committee will still be in operation with these people, or would you just happy to kick it to the next triennium?
I think it's important for continuity because if you've got new people coming in a triennium, you're going back to square one.
Okay. So that is fine, and then the implementation plan. I hope that's okay by 2024. That just gives a reasonable amount of time. Is that okay, Dill? Yeah. And then, yeah, the wording was, but I'm absolutely happy to change that. And just to be absolutely clear, the growth and capability was about sharing resources and honouring our treaty responsibilities, not teaching people how to do their work. And then there are a number of amendments from Councillor Duthie, who unfortunately has put in an apology, and they're important, but I think they're reasonably straightforward. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora. You asked me for just to weigh in, and I think I'll cover it just around the recommendation D of the proposed amendment. Deputy Mayor Swales makes a very good point in that councils will have existing relationships with mana whenua within their own takiwa. But obviously, it's not just one mana whenua group. There's several across the entirety of the region. And so those should not be superseded. Where my reluctance, and I was explaining this with Councillor Pannett last night, was that I'm always mindful that the voice of mana whenua is actually the first voice, not merely just Māori people, but actually mana whenua first. And I guess the wording here for me is a little bit better in terms of being a bit more precise about where the end goal is. I go back to the document that was on notice, and I noticed the language in there, particularly around the implications for Māori, which is I think point 34, page 14 of the document, and talking about the principles of tūpiki order, which is arrangement that started, was fostered through Wellington City Council in alignment with its two mana whenua representatives, Ropu, Te Atiawa me Ngāti Toa. But obviously there are many other takiwa, many other Ropu, runanga, across the entire region. And so what is really important in the language is a commitment to ensure that whether it's a collective view of all mana whenua groups or individual working locally in the action plans that each council have, or in this document itself, that it's not just bundled in as one thing, where the risk is that you lose nuance, but you also, potentially damage mana of individual organisations as well. So that's where I'm kind of guided by the wording around point D. As to point A, the Deputy Mayor may very well be right that that may already be incorporated in the language. But as you could probably imagine from the questions that I've been trying to ask today, I think that there needs to be a greater deal of explanation by officers and subsequent report backs to this item and the creation of the final document to ensure that that it's been demonstrated by officers that they work with mana whenua. However, that being said, it is an enormous logistical challenge, and I am very mindful of the officer's commentary on this already. It does not make it easy in this context, but I would hate to think that as representatives, we would want to have a process that at any stage denied or created the impression of a denial of opportunity for mana whenua wherever they are and however they want to feedback could not actually incorporate into in true partnership under Te Tiriti to having a meaningful policy outcome and a plan that is effective. Kia ora.
Kia ora. That's very helpful, and the point is totally taken. Do you want to reword it, mana whenua across the region, so that it's just really clear that it's not one voice?
Yes, and it's really important because it comes out in the Wellington water space that one voice is overriding the collective voice. And for those that actually have, like we do, and Wellington, who have a partnership and a memorandum, to then just put another layer over top of that is an insult.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for teaching me. I appreciate that. So, So just, I mean, do you, look, I'm very relaxed about number one. It can go if it's not helpful, it's fine. It was just there to indicate that there was more work to be done.
Can I, through you, Chair, I think where it's really important is that when we put on the agenda, or you work with the officers on the agenda, that it actually is like a financial implication, but a mana whenua implication that goes, where you've got the officers actually giving a specific report line on the interaction or engagement. And that way it can always be on the agenda, and then we, as one of the 8, can feed back through the officers that can actually feed into that report. And that way it is always current, it's always front of mind, would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, but I also seen that being used as a bit of a tick box exercise, because we put, you know, I'm sure you do this too, we put in climate change and accessibility issues, and sometimes it's a bit perfunctory.
And that's where I think people that are on this as elected members take the job really seriously, that I hope that they would read their papers and question it. I certainly do.
Yeah, okay. So, yep, Councillor Mitchell.
I assume in my read of A is that the intention was to get those aspirations captured in this actual document, in this plan, for the next 6 years. And I think that given the work that's been done to try and achieve that already and where we've got to, and the relatively short time frame of getting this document consulted on and finalised, I think you run a risk of, even under that direction, maybe capturing the aspirations of some of our iwi mana whenua partners, but not the others, and then you kind of end up with a bit of a fractured thing. So maybe we don't pursue that any further. Just speaking a bit more generally to the document, and I agree with what others have said, that sections 2.5 and 5.2, I think it is, have done a really good job of capturing some high level and broad themes and intent for this plan. You sent through on Friday, Chair, some suggestions, and there was an objective about honouring Te Tiriti, and we discussed how I thought that that's actually a guiding principle. I think both of those things really were in response to the Te Ao Māori part of it. In my view, being really well captured where it is captured, but actually absent from the vision, the guiding principles, the objectives and the targets, and you know, for Māori, that needs to be seen in there. So that's kind of why I think that adding that guiding principle, even though we shouldn't have to say it, it's worth saying it so people see it in there. That's with regards to your suggestion there, D.
So shall we, just because I want to be collaborative about this, just drop number 1, because it's, or A, it's just, if it's, and Jeff, if you're okay with that, and then, but we do keep in the guiding principles, because I think people will ask why it's not there, and we'll just make it clear that it's not one voice. Yeah, of course.
Sorry, just to add another comment to that too, because it was kind of me who suggested reaching out to MFE and other organisations for help. And interestingly, that was in particular because you really see Te Ao Māori captured in primacy in a lot of their environmental documents around Te Mana o Te Wai, Indigenous biodiversity and things like that. Since that workshop, though, I've done a lot of looking at the National Waste Strategy, which is their document in this space. And the primacy of Te Ao Māori is just not in that document either. I think it turns up on page 17 and in very general, for want of a better term, Pākehā, explanation of how it relates to that document as well. So I don't think we're doing any less than the ministry has done in this space. I think that those sections 2.5 and 5.2 are really strong. And for me, it was just about making sure that this can also be seen somewhere in the vision, the principles and the objectives, which is why I agree with the suggestion there to add it as a guiding principle, even though, as I said, I feel like it doesn't need to be stated, but it's worth stating it anyway.
Oh, sorry, I apologise.
No, it's all good, it's all good.
I support you there, Councillor Mitchell, in the sense that under the guiding principles, I don't think the collaboration and participation, which is the bullet point, is probably strong enough. And if we could ask the officers either to elaborate more in that or actually put another guiding principle in there, I think that the majority of us around the table would be really comfortable with that, to pick up what you said, because like you, I read the document and thought that it was a bit light as well from the MFE. But if the rest of us around here are comfortable, I just think that either we elaborate on the collaboration and participation, or we put another bullet point in there that particularly talks about mana whenua.
Yeah. But do you want it as a separate one as well? You okay with that?
Well, I think if you take it out of the collaboration and have it as a separate one, then it looks like...
Oh, okay, under honouring Te
Yeah.
Tiriti. Oh, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure. That's,
If you do that.
Yeah. That's totally fine, and I just like it to be first.
Yeah, fine.
Just to be really clear, not that there's a... Okay, so there is that. Team, are you... Look, and sorry, I was trying to, Councillor Hayward, take your feedback into account, that we're not just talking about being kaitiaki. If we bring in some other concepts, does that look okay to you?
It's better than where it was even a day ago. I guess, and I reflect on the comments that were made by officers earlier on around how they are approaching trying to reflect that into the document. At the workshop, I did, reiterate my concern about how just undercooked I felt the language was in the document around te ao Māori. I guess trying to get assurances from officers to demonstrate that better in the documents in the final version of the plan would be what I think is a useful end goal. But the concepts of kaitiakitanga, me whakawhanangatanga, me manakitanga, me kotahitanga are all important concepts, but I'm just mindful that there may be other concepts of tikanga that we may have missed in highlighting this. And this is why I think having a very robust process of reflecting te ao Māori in the document is really important. And making sure that we have a robust justification as a good treaty partner in terms of our commitment to protecting the mātauranga, the taonga in of itself, is important as well. So there's a lot of nuance in here, and I think it's important to kind of keep this high level. I won't die in a ditch over the language in option C. I'll be happy to support that. I would also, just to close off, just to say that the MFE documentation, I slightly disagree with Councillor Mitchell, because I think actually it's probably the first time I've seen something that was actually decent compared to what has been in other organisations, government organisations in the past. It's not perfect, I agree. I would agree with that much, but it's certainly better than what I've seen in the past. Kia ora.
Kia ora. And the points taken, it wasn't supposed to be an exhaustive list, but so maybe it's best just to stop at in all our waste work. Would you be happy with that, Councillor Swales?
Can I make a suggestion that you actually finish or project to incorporate concepts of te ao Māori, and that then doesn't leave anything out. It makes it more open and embracive.
That's much
all
better.
right.
Good. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
It's fine. Always need an editor. Okay, so yeah, just to incorporate concepts of te ao Māori. Yeah. Okay, and then delete the rest of it.
Support the growth. Keep and support the growth. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, yes. Are you okay with supporting the capability of mana whenua? Because so that's part of our work. Okay, so if we have those three of mine, that's the the midterm review, the implementation plan and the guiding principles, are we kind of okay with that, team? And then we'll get on to Quentin Duffy's more detailed ones, but hopefully they're a bit easier. Are you all right with that, Nigel?
Yep, we will take guidance from the committee, but I will just observe that we did actually look really hard at the New Zealand Waste Strategy, and we tried to follow the guidance from the ministry in actually delivering what we had.
And that's appreciated. Sometimes we want to do better than the government. And just at my level, I'm just worried that we continue to make progress irrespective of who's in power after October. That's my issue. Yeah. But do you have a comment?
Yes, just some clarity again, please, Chair. Was the review for 2026 or 25?
We'll do 25. I think I'll take my colleagues. So
That'll
just
be 1 year.
before October, and it's supposed to be a light review. It is not supposed to be in it. Is that okay?
Could we change the wording to report?
Yeah, sure. No, it's not then if it's 2025. So just if...
An update report.
So when would people like it? July 2025, earlier? Like we can be specific about it.
I apologise, Councillor Mitchell. I think it's really important to get it before we accept our annual plans and KPIs, because that feathers into also the review of our local plans as well. I think it would just feather into, if we have it before.
So what, March 2025?
Yeah, March, April.
Although there's a couple of things there. As you know, our long-term plans are really the big chance. And also, as you know, by the time we're at March, April, we haven't got a lot of room to move if we needed to change something. So then does that bring it back to the end of 2024?
For officers, what is the best? Because I would like to know how we're going regionally and how we're going locally to actually put it into the next plan, whether we are hitting our targets or not. Because retrospectively, what happens is that we get told at the 11th hour and it's too late to do anything.
That's right.
Yeah, Chair, from the point of view of making amendments to the LTP, if we were able to report and then provide review changes to the WMMP through the committee, mid-2025 would be optimal. Mid-2026 would be optimal for the next long-term plan. That's the 2027 long-term plan. So at the moment, we're putting thought into the 2024 LTP with our local action plans and the regional plan, as Nigel mentioned before. If we were going to make changes, optimal time about mid-26. That doesn't mean we couldn't report a little earlier if it was helpful to do so, but you wouldn't want to do it any later than that.
So, okay, so in other words, there wouldn't be one with this committee, but it does raise the question of our role post-adoption of this strategy. And I wondered just even if we had a workshop to prepare for our long-term plans, because that's where we're going to get any money. And look, if all we do as a team is get some good stuff happening through all of our long-term plans, we'll have done a lot, right? You know, because I just know that by the time that last budget comes around, there's not going to be a lot of room to move. Okay, so you would like to make the review 2026? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, because that would then incorporate any changes, regardless of whether it's the status quo government or the new government coming in. But I think it's really important that there are changes to the waste levy where we will get, in the following year, it will go up again. But it's knowing whether any changes with the government, if we have continuing funding. So I think it's important where it sits, if it's status quo government or a change, there are going to be some implications.
Okay, so we've got a report by 2026, but we will be vigorous through 2024 and what's left of 2025 about just making sure that we're doing what we've said we'll do. Okay, all right. Is there any more discussion on those three? Okay, well, you can, if you have a question later on, you can come up with that. Now, I've just Councillor Duthie, unfortunately, so he has given us apologies. Sorry, I forgot. He is a family funeral. But I did think his amendments were reasonable. So I did want to include our friends, the Greater Wellington Regional Council, in acknowledging that we consistently work with them, even though they don't have a role under legislation. So that, I guess that was just, Councillor Duthie was just wanting some points in there about that. And then obviously he's very concerned around litter issues, which clearly, well, it's always a big issue, but clearly there's some really big problems in Hutt, and I'm sure Councillor Mitchell, you'll be able to speak to that better than most of us. And of course Councillor Swales too for Upper Hutt. And then I just thought it would be useful to look at the Whaitua program. Maybe if, I don't know if you've already done that.
I guess no, we haven't looked at the Whaituas because they are totally different legislation altogether. And obviously there's I suppose our confusion is that the regional council's got a certain regulatory responsibility, and clearly a lot of the actions under the Waste Minimisation Act are quite different here, and we haven't included Greater Wellington at this point simply because they didn't have that statutory framework which allows them to participate in this other than an observer. So I guess that was our starting point. So I can accept that that Councillor Duthie does want to actively participate, which is great. But I just couldn't see the statutory links because this has definite implications for all of us. So they don't have voting rights. So that was where we were sort of a little bit not sure about whether we should cover this off at all. As for the actions, litter is certainly going to be part of the new legislation as it comes through. So I was surprised it was just local actions, but over to councillors as to decide where to go on that.
Oh, so you would suggest it should be a regional one?
To my mind, yeah, it was very, very specific, and I wasn't sure why.
I think it was just because he had that local knowledge. Councillor Mitchell, you want to say something?
I was going to ask, Chair, if we could work through these one by one.
Yeah. I think. It's just two things, and because I've been chair before, I was really always conscious to include the Greater Wellington Regional Council because they do have that regulatory role, and because it was important to show that we can work together, right, for the good of the region. So all the amendment that I'd asked for even was just to make a note that we do work in collaboration with them, but they don't have a regulatory role. That was all that was. Okay, so shall we just take these? This is 5.1, roles and responsibilities. Councillor Mitchell, do you have something to say about that one?
Yeah, and I agree, and I think all that Councillor Duthie is looking for is some acknowledgement that Greater Wellington Regional Council do have a role, not a statutory role as part of this committee, but what their role, how they fit into the puzzle. So I think all he's looking for in there is a paragraph explaining Greater Wellington have no statutory function as part of this plan. However, this is how they are involved in the waste space, and it's really just an explainer more than anything else, I think, of how they fit in.
Also, it's quite an important philosophical point that we are not going to get into siloed thinking around what legislation applies. I know we have to be careful, but we've just had a long discussion about Te Ao Māori. We don't want to just split it all off. Yeah. Okay. So are you comfortable enough with that wording that he has suggested?
Can I say something here?
Yeah.
I actually have to support what the officers say with regard to the legislative requirements of this committee and, the standing orders that surround us. And whilst it's really nice to have Greater Wellington Regional come and sit in as an observer and participate in the workshops, and I see that, it's important to work with them. I see under collaboration and partnerships, I don't see there being an issue there, but I don't see that when we go out for consultation, this is not a plan that they sign up to, whereas we do, the 8 councils do. It's not a plan that they go out and consult on, whereas we do as 8 councils. I find it really, really And as much as you, Chair, might think that we're not wanting to work with them, it isn't actually part of their mandate that is legislated in the legislation for them to do. And with some of the things that they want around litter, I have to agree with the officers in the sense that that is a piece of legislation that is coming through. Whether it does or doesn't, we don't know what's happening with government. But let's just say that with the way the landscape is, it is coming through. Also, when you look at local action plans, you need to look at the local action plans that each council has got. And Upper Hutt City Council already has an action plan around local litter, and each of us need to be working with that. And then there's a section there that Hutt City Council and Upper Hutt work together. That should go to a sheds committee that we have between the two councils to go there, because that would fit in that mandate. So I'm not quite sure where we, as elected people around here, we need to stick to what we're responsible for, what we're legislated to. And I'm comfortable to put it in as part of a collaboration and partnership, but not the rest.
Okay, so would it be better to put it in as a regional action? Would people feel comfortable with that? Yeah.
I just make a point. This is why I asked if we could go through them one by one, because
Yeah.
we just covered them all again.
Yeah.
And looking at the first one, roles and responsibilities, it's a section in there. And if you skim through it, there's a section on council's role, there's a section on the role of central government, the role of communities, the role of industry and business. So I think it's a fair point that's been made that Greater Wellington aren't included in there. They do have a role in the waste space and in this. And I think it's a very simple request to include in there somewhere, and it could be as part of the end of the council section, what Greater Wellington Regional Council's role is. I don't think he's actually suggested any wording, but bits that could be covered in there in relation, especially in relation to minimising. So I think that's a really simple request, and it should be in there, just to, again, so it can be seen, and then we could move on to the next point.
Are people okay with accepting that point?
Just
So-
the adding to section 5.1 roles and responsibilities to see Greater Wellington recognised in there and what role they do play.
Through you, Chair, if you look under the regional action plans, which are...
No, I think you're getting ahead of us, Councillor Swales.
Oh,
We're
so
just
we'll
talking
just
about
take we'll
the-
just take them one by one. It's just about recognising all the different stakeholder roles. Are you comfortable with that, or is it?
So are we going to miss any out like we did with some of the Te Ao Māori? If
Miss-
we start
we're-
naming people, I mean, you know, that was the
Well, we've
principle
already
that we
named.
had
We've
under.
already named councils, central government, communities, industry and business. We have missed out Greater Wellington Regional Council. So I think that's the point that's been made by Councillor Duffy, and I think it's a very simple inclusion to make.
I'd rather not go to a vote. Are you still uncomfortable?
I think you need to go to a vote.
Okay, well we can just mark that one. That's fine. That's okay. That's all good. Now the next point. Yeah. Okay. So that's the regional action plan. Are people comfortable with the wording here?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, of
one,
course,
Chair?
of
I was a
course,
little
go for
bit
it.
confused actually by what Councillor Duffy had written, section 6.2, regional action 9. I don't know if he was commenting on an earlier draft or something like that. There's a regional action 8, which is about litter. It doesn't make any reference to including at-risk natural areas such as rivers and beaches, which it seems he wants amended. I couldn't find what he was commenting on in this current draft in front of us.
Okay, so that might be. Sorry, he was wanting answers, and so I just.
That's all right. The third point that he makes there, as I mentioned in an earlier email, is to do more than consider responding to prevent harm, and I agree with that point he's made there. Basically, it's
Yeah.
number 8 in here, not number 9. That's why I'm confused what he was commenting on. One of the reasons why I'm confused what he was commenting on is to do the monitoring and understand the extent of the issue, and then to consider appropriate remediation or further actions. And I think he's made a good point there that we shouldn't just be considering them, but we should actually be doing something about it. So I would suggest changing that word consider to implement.
So we could just use that one as the amendment.
Yeah, but the first 2 points there, I don't know where it's even come from. So it's not just including at-risk natural areas such as rivers and beaches. I can't see any reference to that in the document as it stands. I don't know if, Nigel, you can comment on that.
I think possibly what the councillor is referring to is that most of the monitoring, if we're going to do it consistently across the region, is a program that Sustainable Coastlines has got in place called the Litter Intelligence Platform, which currently does reflect predominantly beaches and estuaries. However, we do have Keep New Zealand Beautiful, who have a more holistic approach to how monitoring does take place. So I guess I think if we have and that's why we went consistent monitoring across the region, was we pick up on both Sustainable Coastlines and Keep New Zealand Beautiful. So we have land-based and beach-based monitoring in place.
Okay, so shall we just take that one around considering responding to preventing harm? Are people comfortable with that, or again, would you like to go to a vote on it?
That's a change, Chair, from consider to implement.
Yeah.
Just that wording there.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable with that than just considering it.
Any concerns about that? Councillor Swales, or Deputy Mayor Swales, sorry.
Sorry, I'm comfortable with that. I was just ticking through my head what implications that might mean outside of any projects and funding that we would get. Yeah, because that means that we have to do something, and I'm not opposed to doing something. I think we need to, but it's just the implications of financial. But if it's a regional project and we have the ability to raise money and put some money towards it, I'm comfortable. Yeah.
Okay. Right, now the next one, sorry, I think we'll just keep going and then you can have morning tea, and then we can come back and just sort all this out. The 6.2.
Comments on that?
Yeah, sure, you go for it.
Just my general comment on that, and they're good suggestions, I think, for things to be considered. However, the officers can confirm my suspicion on this. I think local action plans are developed by local councils. I don't feel like it's the place of this committee to override councils' local action plans and for us to amend them. If anything, I think we could suggest that the relevant councils consider those amendments to their local action plans. I'm seeing some nods in the room. Does that kind of ring true to you, Nigel, how this should perhaps work?
Yes, agree, councillor.
Yeah,
So I think that that's something for those councils to take away, and that this committee could certainly suggest that the relevant councils consider those changes to local action plans. But
I do have a view on that, just given that we're trying to get to be a bit more consistent, right? That this sort of thing about not telling other councils, I'm very happy for people to advise Wellington City what we should be doing. That's absolutely fine. I mean, unless we put something at the regional level about the whaitua, again, trying to get that integration. No, you're not enthusiastic?
I guess I'm looking at it, I look after the harbour catchments as well. I'm looking at the whaitua as there's specific actions which relate to local councils within that, and I think that more than covers off what we need to do as a council to actually implement the whaitua.
Okay. Is it possible in this document at some point as a minor editorial to make reference to the whaitua work, because it's not all separate?
Yep, I think we probably could. I'd have to go and look at the provisions that we could actually put that into.
But yeah, it's just as a relevant policy.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, I really don't like siloing things. I find that really problematic. So yeah, but I take all your points too. All right. So do you want to actually? I mean, I don't think so. I think if councillor reps want to put something in, so then that's what we should do. Otherwise, yeah, we shouldn't put in a recommendation recommending that councils do it. We should, do you want to put something in?
just returning, Chair, I think we could recommend that relevant councils consider those things, and then that goes back to those councils and they can make a decision based on their budgets and priorities.
You're happy with that? Okay, all right. Okay. And you don't want to review the WIP? You just think it's getting too complicated? Yeah, okay. Look, that's fine. And then,
I think too, as Nigel said, that the Whaitua program carries its own mana and drives that work forward. It shouldn't need to filter through here and have us trying to push it along any more than it's being pushed along. That's kind of how I feel about Whaitua
Okay.
too. It's a great piece of work, but it kind
Okay.
of sits outside. Clearly there are bits that overlap, and Councillor Duthie's trying to draw our attention to that, but I think that in particular, asking the individual councils to maybe think about it if they haven't, or have another look through it or whatever, and make those decisions for
okay,
themselves.
so that we gently recommend that councils consider that. Okay, sorry.
They consider it.
Okay, all right. And then the last one.
I think that sits in the same space because it's local action plans.
Yeah, you're
It's already in our local action plan. It's one of our last action plan points under Upper Hutt City Council, and we will also bring it up under shared services. I'll go back.
okay. And do you feel it's covered in your document? Do you? Sorry, I just can't remember all that. Every
I
action.
think it is in there, yeah, but happy to ask our officers
Just to make
have a closer
double
look
check.
in.
Sorry, there were lots of them.
Ah. It's certainly an issue that's well on the radars of both Upper Hutt and Lower Hutt City Councils.
Do you want to say something, Nigel?
Yeah, I'm just curious. It's definitely just the three councils, and we've got a Whaitua implementation plan here in Porua, and there are certain, why wouldn't we be looking to ask Kapiti to do exactly what we're doing here and ourselves? It just seems odd that it's quite focused on the councils. I would think it would be better to have one which actually reflects all councils and say
Okay.
consider it.
Okay. So shall we just change it to collaborate on reducing the instances of fly tipping and then full stop? Is that okay?
Yeah, unless we just wanted to make a more generic recommendation that councils review.
It's a very difficult one to stop fly tipping, right?
No, I mean in terms of Whaitua, a more generic recommendation that councils review their local action plans with regards to things that are consistent
Except,
with
as you
Whaitua.
know, because we are trying to integrate the Whaitua doesn't follow council boundaries.
Yeah, and I think Nigel's made a really good point, though, that Councillor Duthie has specifically looked at the Te Whanganui-a-Tara Whaitua program, which he was a part of, and ignored the fact that Poriroa is ahead of the rest of them, and Kapiti has their own one as well. These recommendations are very specific.
Okay. So we will just keep it to fly tipping. And then the one above was just to recommend to all councils to look at the implementation of the Whaitua plans. Will that be? Sorry, it's very small.
Yeah, so to take out that specific reference to recommendation 50 and make it a more generic recommendation. Recommendations relating to stormwater as a pathway for litter or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have similar things in other Whaitua. But really it's just, I think, looking at the synergy between Whaitua and this particular program of work.
Okay. Now, we've still got some discussion to have about the vision, so I'm going to suggest we have a morning tea break now. But hopefully we are getting there, so we're not going to need lots of debate. That's because we've had a good discussion. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your input. start talking about a vision. Which, last time, that was actually done very quickly, but we've decided we want a different one. So the first thing is as a result of discussions with Councillor Hayward, I did put in an introduction rather than just starting off with the 8 councils of the region are welcoming your feedback, actually just saying what the problem is. Councillor Hayward, I don't know if I got the wording right there. So, it's the first document, the draft statement of proposal. Sorry, that will come up soon, sorry.
Can I just
Worry about the wording later. Let's just go on to, and yeah, we'll just take a little adjournment. So if we can just open up the draft statement of proposal. Okay, so that was the first change. Councillor Hayward, are you there? Oh, raised his hand. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here.
Jeff.
I can hear you. I hope you can hear me. I'm happy with that proposed wording as a introductory paragraph.
Thank you. Is there any feedback on that?
Through you, Chair,
Yes.
is Wellington, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That is good. Right. Okay, so the next one, look, I did put that thing in the councils. I've also worked in collaboration with Greater Wellington, but this seems to have caused some conniptions, so won't proceed with that. Now, officers, I do feel quite strongly about this. We did, with the current WMMP, talk about being waste free. It wasn't just about reducing some waste. So is that okay if that, just because it's factually correct? Yeah. All right. Okay. Now, this is not well worded, but hopefully it's starting to get to, at least towards the concept. So I've had quite a lot of discussion with a couple of you. Some people feel the circular economy needs to be in there. So the officers has had working together to minimise waste for people, environment and economy. I guess I felt that was a bit, it was taking a bit of a step backwards because we're not just doing a waste minimisation program. So the circular economy came in. I tried to get in that concept, Jeff, around our interconnectedness with nature, low waste, because Councillor Mitchell rightly pointed out to me that zero waste might be a bit of a dream, and people understand what it means. And then people in communities, that's what we're always about. But it could be worded better, and so I guess I'm just interested in some feedback about how we manage that. Or do people want to go with the existing one?
Can I have a bit of a question?
Yeah.
So this is the first time I've seen these. I don't know about my colleagues around the table. We're asking to change a document that we've kind of landed on through a number of different workshops, right? My fear is that when we start tinkering or changing some of these things, before we want to go out for consultation in 7 days, I think my recall is right, maybe some of these changes can be addressed in the consultation feedback that we get, that we can keep a mind of these are some recommendations that we would like to see, rather than try and change them now, would be my suggestion. Or because this, some of the words, I do a lot of negotiation on an international platform, and words are really important of what you say. So at the UN, it's really important that you get the words right, not what you think they mean. So not having really had the opportunity to sit down and digest this, I'm inclined to maybe lay them on the table and address them after the consultation period or part of the consultation period would be my suggestion.
So just to respond, look, I take your point, but I think we did make a commitment to the circular economy idea. There was some feedback at the workshop that we wanted quite strong wording. I sent these out first of all on Friday afternoon, and then having further conversations just made some more changes. In a way, you're right. It might be better just not, because we need some more discussion. But I am concerned, though, that this was not the kaupapa of this committee just to talk about waste minimisation. So we will get some strong feedback from some of our key stakeholders on that point. Also, of course, it just does not in any way really reflect a te ao Māori perspective. So that was... But in saying that, that's why there was needing to be more discussion, because my intention was that this will probably change anyway. So I don't want to die in a ditch over this. I mean, it's just as long as it's flagged. How do people want to proceed?
I think you raised this, Chair, with me thinking that what was drafted there wasn't ambitious enough. And I think if that's a call, then we should be able to go ahead and put something more ambitious in there. I think otherwise that's the feedback you're going to get, as you rightly said, particularly from some stakeholders, that it's not ambitious enough. Embedding the circular economy in there, that's a principle now of the national waste strategy as well. Worth talking about. When I discussed it with you, I kind of flagged with you that there might be, my next door neighbours probably have no idea what you'd be talking about if all you talked about was the circular economy. I think having the low waste bit there is important. It's a little bit wordy. I don't know, maybe we could say a low waste circular economy with people and nature at heart. To strip it down a bit, I think those two things are important, but yeah.
Thank you. Any other feedback from everyone? You two have been very quiet.
Look, I'm happy to speak to this. I agree with what Helen was saying. If it comes back in the consultation that it's not strong enough, that's fine. We take that as feedback and we can modify it then. But having here we are thinking about, is that the right wording for this? Is that the right wording for that? But we've already gone through that process with this. So I think we are potentially... I hear what they're saying about the circular economy, but it wasn't introduced last time we talked about this. We are going out for consultation. There's nothing wrong with addressing that as a result of the consultation that comes back, if we want to. There's no issue with that at all. I agree about the circular economy, but I'm just a little bit concerned that here we are at this late in the game, again, making little... that's not a little tweak.
No.
The whole line's gone through that, and we're putting something brand new in. I'm just, I'll be a bit concerned about we might get the wording wrong, or everything will die, or something might come back that we haven't thought about because we haven't thrashed this out long enough. That's the whole point of consultation. We've got a very substantial consultation process coming up. I think we've got to be a little bit careful we don't try to solve every problem here at the moment, because this is a consultation process. This is not the end document as such. We're getting good feedback from our council officers with regards to things, what we should or shouldn't do. If we're concerned about that stuff, look at the feedback that comes in, and if it needs to be fished out, we can fish it out. We can make note of these things. But certainly support Helen's view with regards to being a bit careful we don't tinker too much.
Any other views? Yeah.
I'm comfortable with it going out as it is and taking advantage of what is presented to us during the consultancy. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Hayward. Oh, and sorry.
I guess
Sorry,
I would
I-
have thought that it'd be good to make whatever changes you can now before you go out to consultation and then have a look at it rather than the other way around.
That was my thinking. And then Councillor Hayward?
I get the point of the previous speaker as well. I'm also mindful that it's not ideal process to do this with less than 24 hours notice for the sake of good deliberative decision making. And Deputy Mayor Swales makes a very good point. For my part in this, I have been very unwell, so I have not had the chance to kind of feed in prior to last night when I followed up on a phone call request from Councillor Pennant. My concerns were, and I believe we've had a substantial amount of time already talking about how we integrate Te Ao Māori into the documentation. I'm satisfied with the progress thus far on that stream of work. I think that the clincher really is that as elected representatives, I don't think we should be spending time wordsmithing on the fly the document that goes out to the public. However, if there is the reason why I think that that introductory paragraph is important is to very clearly say at the outset what the context is in a very straightforward fashion. The rest of the wording, I kind of resonate with the point that Councillor Pennant made just a while ago. We shouldn't have to die in a ditch over getting the wording right on this document. And it may be better, and let's not remind ourselves that the key thing here is the final document rather than the document that goes out to consultation. The final plan is actually the thing that which will be held accountable and others will hold us to account for. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thanks. I hear you all, so I think we can, if you want to drop it, but I guess we did have a workshop and I certainly did give feedback that some of these things needed to be stronger. So there has been a bit of a longer history on all of this. But if people just want to, look, some of the work's been done, so it can be added in later. So, for example, I put in affordability, actually, for residents, which I think will definitely come back as feedback. But we can put those in later if that's what people feel.
Can I, through you, Chair, can I just say that the implications of what you've just suggested up here and why I think that we should leave it because 24 hours is not enough notice is that it actually has an implication on the whole document. You know, there are implications of whatever you say in that statement that will actually have to be feathered into the rest of the document, and I don't think we've got time to do that. So I certainly think that we hold it, lay it on the table, and we look at it when we come to analysing the feedback from consultation. Yeah. Thank you.
So, and look, just the last point on this is that I did feel that vision statement took us backwards rather than forwards. That has been my concern. It takes us back to 2008, and that we are literally living through the crisis now. And we have to work quite quickly, but I don't want to have a debate with you, good people, and we can just make sure that we've got a good process about how to incorporate what will be some quite significant changes likely when it comes back, which is always a good story to tell to communities that changes were made. Okay, so that's fine. So people just happy with that first paragraph, and then we will leave the rest.
Through you, Chair, if I could just have a copy of that email because I haven't seen it. Thank you. And I'm sure.
I sent you all the emails, but
Did you receive an email this morning from Councillor Pennant?
I will send it to you, that's fine.
There was an attachment to this document. That's on
and
the
something on
screen.
Friday afternoon too.
Yeah, but this is your latest one. So is this the statement of proposal attachment to that email this morning? There was 2 attachments, I think, from memory.
Yep. I'm just doing that. That's all good.
So So, Councillor Pennant, are you proposing to skip your amendments to
Yeah,
the
look, yeah,
objectives?
that's fine. That's
I
not a
think
problem.
there's one thing.
Oh, was there a question in
There was a
there?
question that you added. What further practical actions can we take in partnership with mana whenua and stakeholders to reduce waste? I think that's a perfectly good question to.
Is that's all right? People happy with
Doesn't
that?
change the substance of the draft, which is kind of what the other suggestions do. It's just an additional question to consider.
So just the introduction and that extra question, are people okay with that?
If whoever's controlling the screen could scroll down to the questions part of it, there's just one question that was added, which I think is a good suggestion.
Sorry.
Page 5, I think, up a page. Yeah, there we can see
Last
it
question. Any thoughts on that one?
I think, Chair, it's just another prompt for something else that people can consider in their submission. So
You do? Okay.
I think
There's not enough.
It's a
Okay.
good. I think it's a good suggestion.
You do?
Yeah, I'm happy for it to be in there. It's not, as I said, it's not a substantial change to the draft or anything like that. It's just drawing a bit of focus to
Okay.
an element of it.
Is everyone okay with it?
So if my understanding is then it's just a question that will be posed.
Yeah.
And under that, then, if we're quite concerned about the representation and the voice of mana whenua and, probably the lack of engagement, I had a conversation at morning tea with the chair, Councillor Pageant, and, all of us have access to Māori liaison people in our councils, and maybe we should invite one of them as an observer to actually sit here and speak. And I'm not saying that council officers are not talking or engaging with them, but if it might appease some of the answers or questions that are put around the table, it might be something for us to consider in the future. Just a suggestion, nothing to stop the consultation document going out.
Thank you, Councillor. I think at the workshop, we did pose a request to the joint committee that can the joint committee enable or help us engage with mana whenua as well. And if that is a step, I think if I can just speak for Wellington City Council and probably on behalf of the region as well, that would be very welcome.
Okay. So just again, the correct process for doing that?
So I think what we do is whether we give it as a directive to our council officers, there's a regional planning committee, whether they would approach 8 of the councils to see if there is a person that would like to sit as an observer on this committee for us, or whether we as elected people. But I think the first approach should actually come from the officers, because they would go to the CEO to see whether it would be something that they could do, and we would just as elected people support that initiative. Yeah.
Well, sorry, can I just ask Democracy Services, do we have to go through a formal process actually? It's not even asking the CE just to have an observer?
You are welcome to go through moving an amendment to this paper that requests that, or you can just ask officers, and if you're happy that they'll go away and do that.
Okay, so it's not a problem in terms of the terms of reference or anything?
Not to have somebody come and watch. Like, you couldn't add somebody as a member of the committee or anything like that.
Can they sit at the table as an observer?
As long as the committee and the chair are happy, anybody can.
I was going to say, under standing orders, you as the chair can ask for speaking rights for that person around the table, and then we all elect, vote on that, and I'm sure we'd all vote yes, wouldn't we, team?
Yeah. Okay. Do we want to put that up as an amendment since we're doing so many? I think it would be good to record it properly. So request officers to discuss with the relevant territorial authorities whether we can have an iwi a staff member with competence in Te Ao Māori to sit as an observer on this committee for the rest of the training. Yeah. Okay.
Well, there's two aspects to that. We've got iwi liaison teams, so it can be a staff member that sits on.
Yeah.
That's from one of those iwi liaison teams, or it can be a mana whenua representative, if they so wish.
Yeah.
That's easy. Look, can I just ask for some clarity here? Questions to consider. Are these questions that are going in the document to go out to the general community to answer? Because I'm a little bit lost, and Helen, I'd like your guidance on this one. What practical actions can we take in partnership with mana whenua? That's not a question to go out to the community. That's a question for us to work with mana whenua directly. I mean, mana whenua, they're not going to take too kindly to everyone else telling them what to do. And stakeholders to reduce waste. Again, these are actions that we need to take with regards to approaching our stakeholders. Now, whether that be that they submit into this, but it's not really that I wouldn't have thought the general public would even be in a position to know what that should look like as such. That's quite a complex question. And that's really, it's a council officer's job to be working with mana whenua with regards to whatever partnership looks like in their respective districts. It's not something to really go out for general consultation, I would have thought. I appreciate...
No, it's a fair enough point.
I appreciate the intent with regards to mana whenua involvement, but that's a given in this process, and we have covered that off as well. And I'm just a little bit worried again. We don't get into the unfortunate situation of trying to over-modify what our requirement here is, when in actual fact we've got it very, very well covered. Helen, you've been happy with what wording's there to date. I've been happy with it, but that to me is almost a question we need to pose to our committee at the end of this process.
Well, and also I don't want to open up to members of the public who might not want mana whenua involved.
Well, it could go down that pathway. It could be used as a protest.
Which would not be helpful.
I think too, Chair, if you look at it as a broader question of submitters of what else can we do other than what we've listed in partnership with stakeholders to reduce waste, that's kind of covered up in earlier questions. There's one, do you agree with the actions?
Yeah.
And a follow-up question, if you do not agree, what have we missed? I think that's kind of asking the
covers
same
it.
thing in a much more generic...
That's wide open, you know.
Okay. All right, no, we can take it out. It's all good. That's why we have discussion.
I appreciate that. I'm warming up.
All right. Yes.
I just had a query on whether one of the reportings for councils, and maybe I'm being too simple, is the kilograms per capita to landfill. Like we do with drinking water, litres per capita, it's a very simple one, and it can be nailed up on the wall somewhere in the...
And a very long document, which people will miss.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, it's a good one.
Yeah, through the chair, just to be very careful, it's actually not that simple, because we can, all three of us who own landfills, measure exactly how much comes in. We have no idea where it's coming from. So unlike drinking water, which is supplied to a very finite ring-fenced community, we know how many properties there are, we know how many people there are. With the stuff that comes into the landfill, Spicer here, which I manage, has waste coming in from Levin that's outside the region. So we can make a sort of a proxy by assessment through a swap analysis, but we can't know exactly how much it is per capita. We don't know where it's coming from.
Hearing that, could we at least do it regionally?
Yeah,
because we probably could, at some level, I'd just like that target on the wall.
Regionally, it would be a little more accurate, yes. We could do a combination of the three landfills and it would be more accurate, but we do know that we still do get waste from outside of the region.
And saying so, we know we're shocking, right? So, in a way, it's not. Yeah. So I think that's a good point. Just to remind us that we have a way to go. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to ask for one correction.
Yeah.
To be considered there. Remember, there was relevant knowledge of Te Ao Māori can sit in as an observer. I would have thought that would potentially be more of as an advisor. An observer just sits and watches and doesn't comment. An advisor.
Oh, as an advisor? Yeah. No, great. Sure. Great. Okay. All right. We've worked hard. Just before we just sort of have a little adjournment just to make sure all the wording's right, is there anything else that the committee wants to raise as an amendment, and then we'll just take any further comments from staff? Have you done enough for today?
I'd just like to withdraw my objection around 5.1 with the Greater Wellington Regional Council. So you can thought I'd just throw that in there for you, just in case you.
Hopefully we can do this all by consensus. Okay, so there's nothing else. Sorry, this is a very Wellington City Council thing to do, to bring lots of changes. Councillor Mitchell?
That's all right, Chair. I think by email there was a bunch of much more minor changes to the document suggested by both me and you, and I'm happy to leave those in the hands of officers as suggestions for them to take action upon, either in this draft for consultation or consider it when things come back through.
Have we got the recommendation around minor changes? Sorry, just haven't. I've got to bring it. Once my screen goes off and goes blank. We don't. Is it all right, committee, if we just put, that's usually a standard one we have, just that officers do have authority to make minor amendments? Or sometimes in consultation with the chair. Are people happy with that? Councillor Mitchell just raised some detail, very detail. He read it properly. It's very impressive.
I think most of those are usually just around grammar amendments, not the intent of the document. So I think we've got to be really careful about what we delegate to them to change.
Okay, so how about that everything we've submitted, though, can be considered by officers, and then we can have that debate when it comes back?
I'd actually like to go through what we're letting them consider, because there were some quite...
There's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot. So
weren't unanimous.
No, absolutely. So the process is going to be, if there's just any final comments from officers, I'm just going to call for a short adjournment just to make sure that we've got the wording right as I've understood it, and then we'll go through it carefully, okay? Absolutely. There's been lots. Dill, did you have something to say?
Thank you, Chair. Just want some clarification on point 6 there with regards to the staff member. Does that staff member have to have a regional view of EV representation? I just want some clarification on that, because Councillor Hayward did mention that we can have views, but we don't want to override or even just represent 2 or 3 views, but a view of a region. So just that role of the advisor speaker and what they bring to the table.
Can I just add to that point? I think for those that participate in the Wellington Regional Leaders Forum, right, there is mana whenua chair there, and I think they do give a regional lens, and that's what I'm anticipating would be around the table, in that it would be around protocols and culture, not around this is what you're going to do. And for some of us around the table that may not be aware of some of those issues, that's where I was coming from.
And they'll, of course, be very sensitive, right? Very, very sensitive to the fact they can't speak for other people. So, Jeff.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Swells basically made the point I made. So protocol and awareness of from a cultural sensitivity perspective would be essential, I think, as part of the deliberative process as decision makers, so that they feel that they have been prudent in making a decision around this table.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. So look, if you could just give me and Andy 3 minutes with Sean just to make sure it looks, and then we'll go through them, and then they can be emailed to the committee just to make sure everyone's absolutely happy with them. Thank you. worded well too. Anyone's, but I intend to hopefully get you out of here very soon, since we've had so much discussion. So people just want to have a look at that and see whether they're happy. And we'll get you that hard copy very soon. Oh, thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. What having a distinct but complementary role? Would it not be just a complementary role?
That's totally fine. They do have a distinct role, though.
Yeah, but it's not in the waste minimisation.
Okay,
space.
all right. No.
Sorry.
No. It's good. It's good that you.
Sorry.
No. It's important, actually. We just need to be a bit, yeah.
And I think too, that's not a suggestion of exact wording to officers. It's just a suggestion of the content to be covered, right?
Yeah. But we'll be careful with that one, okay? Yep. Given the discussion. No. I've got it. Otherwise I have to put it somewhere. Some of stuff in my house.
Scroll it up again.
Oh, could we just scroll it up again? Do you want the hard copy, Andy? Would that be?
Everyone, I think, is reading off the screen.
Oh, okay.
Through you, Chair, could I just make a suggestion, please, on
Yep.
number 7?
Yep.
And it's delegate to the Chair and Deputy Chair the powers to authorise the final statement of proposal and plan following officers updating them to incorporate any agreed amendments
Yep.
made at this meeting.
Agreed. It shouldn't even have any agreed amendments.
Yeah.
Full stop. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just take at the end. Yeah. Thanks. I do have a view that it could still be made a bit shorter too, but we can look at that when the document comes back. So, for example, there was a lot around the proposed legislation, and I just don't think we need that in a 6-year document. Yeah. But I do like the layout of the action plan compared to last time. It's easy to read. Has anyone got any questions, suggestion for changes? No.
Yes, do you mind if I
Yeah, of
bump
course.
in here? Yeah, sorry. It's a very, very tiny thing, and I think it's just from a reading point of view rather than anything meaningful. But in point 5, the sentence "changing the waste pathway that is harmful to the environment and everything that relies on it is critical." It it's clunky to read. And I think if we put in just the word currently, changing the waste pathway that is currently harmful to the environment and everything that relies on it is critical. It just seems to make the sentence flow a little bit better.
Thank you for being my editor. The concept, I think, is right, but it wasn't well worded. So we'll keep working on that, but that's a helpful suggestion. Okay, anything else? So is everyone happy that that's going to be now, I can move this as part of the amended substantive, but we can take any separately if people are not comfortable. So Mitchell will be seconding.
I don't need them to be taken
Taken
one by
separately.
one.
All right. Well, so is everyone okay? Understand what's been changed? Okay. So look, just really briefly, I'm now going to introduce this report. And very briefly, because we've had so much talking, I just want to say a big thanks to staff. We are incredibly lucky to have such a committed group of people and to our waste journey working with us. So thank you. It is a very, very large job. And thank you, of course, to the committee too. We started at a different time in the process to last time, so it just does feel like we haven't sort of gone through the assessment together. But look, it's been, while it's been quite messy and lots of work, I've enjoyed the process today because I think through talking we get to a better outcome. I'd also like to particularly thank Deputy Mayor Swales and Councillor Hayward for educating me. You know, that's a big journey around Te Ao Māori and just about how, as we bring two worlds together, we can make them work. And it is not easy at all. And we're not, as I said to Councillor Hayward last night, we're not going to get it right now. But as long as we can continue to make some progress, because I think there is a very strong commitment to getting that right, and it will only be good for the environment as well. So I look forward to hearing what people have to say. I tend to find that submissions on the waste area are very high quality because you've got people who are very committed and know a lot. So we're going to get some good feedback, a public assurance that there will be changes made. There absolutely will be. So because and I'm always think it's good to be humble that people have other ideas and views which will make our work better. So very much looking forward to hearing feedback. Thank you again. Councillor Mitchell, you'd like to second? Would you like to speak? No? Would anyone like to speak? You're politicians, really?
I just want to reiterate what you said as chair, to congratulate the staff to get us to this space, to actually be open, and I hate using this word, but to pivot to and bend to the will of the elected people, which is not always consistent and in a timely manner. So thank you all very much. So I echo the words of the chair and the deputy chair, and I'm sure my fellow colleagues around here. Thank you, officers, for the work you've done.
I'll certainly endorse those comments. This is it's great to see this piece of work happening. It's long overdue. We've got some fantastic expertise in this room for an officer's position, and I'm pretty sure that they've not missed any I's or T crosses there as well. But we'll see what comes back from the consultation. That's what the consultation process is. But I think we've got very robust documents coming out, and it's outcome based, you know, with measurables. And I think that's a key thing here, because everyone's almost got a little bit of overload. We're just discussing this before with regards to waste, you know, and I think a lot of people are losing either interest or confidence that there are pathways to resolving these issues. And we don't have an option. They have to be resolved. So great to have some structure around that. We now need to be resourcing perhaps a bit better in this space, because it is coming up that priority list pretty damn quick. And I know these are departments that necessarily haven't had the budgets previously. So I do believe we need help from central government. This is not something that local government needs to sort out itself. It needs to be a combined effort, and that is certainly in the area of funding. But as we well know, that's a general local government issue. But these sorts of things are, we're heading for major outcomes for our country and our future well-being and our generational well-being as well. So, nope, this is a fantastic piece of work. The quicker we can get it out, people aren't stopping. There are a lot of councils already aligning to this. There's already actions being taken, which is great. This is in motion. This just puts that structure around to it. So very proud to have been a part of it and respecting all the expertise that's been brought to the equation. Very much looking forward to the outcomes.
Thank you. Any other comments? No. Just thank you for raising the point about we need central government help. We are in a crisis, and there is a great deal of work to do, and really in a way the document isn't the most important thing, it's the actions that we take. Yeah, but looking forward to that work, and once we've gone through the consultation process, we have until nearly the end of 2025 to work at a political level to get some action happening. All right, councillors, do you wish to take anything separately? Otherwise we'll take it as a block. No? All right, so I'll just ask you to raise your hand if you are in support of the recommendations. Okay, so that's everyone, no one's against. So could we just record that? That would be very helpful for colleagues who are not here. And we've got the colleagues online as well. Thank you. All right, team, again, a huge thanks for all your hard work. And we will now... tēnā kua mutu te hui e tū mō te karakia. And again, if you'd like to say that with me, that would be great. Have you got, is the word, oh yes, the wording's up. Unahia, unahia, unahia ki te uru tapanui, kia wātia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, e te ara takatū, koe rā e rongo, whakairea aki ke runga, kia wātia, ai rā kua wātia.